Russia has intensified its offensive near Kupiansk in the Kharkiv region since early September. Ukrainian defenders are now protecting the area and trying to hold back enemy forces to prevent the town from being recaptured. Nadiia Zamryha, head of the communications department of the 14th Separate Mechanized Brigade, named after Prince Roman the Great, spoke about this on Hromadske Radio. Our area of responsibility is across the Oskil River, where the brigade entered back in 2022, participating in the Kharkiv counteroffensive. Some units crossed the Oskil River, and now we are holding the defense in those settlements. This is achieved with extremely difficult efforts because the enemy does not stop and continues to attempt assault actions in our area. He conducts assault actions, let's say, 90 to 99% with his infantry. For a time, there were attempts to do this with equipment. At first, the Russians tried to enter with armored vehicles, even in columns, including armored personnel carriers, BMPs, tanks, and MTLBs. But our guys very successfully and effectively destroyed all of it. Then they switched to lighter equipment like quad bikes, motorcycles and buggies. But now they don't use that either, because they don't understand that it has all been turned into scrap metal. The brigade spokeswoman emphasized that she cannot speak for the city of Kupiansk because their units are located across the Oskil River, but in their area of responsibility, they do not observe an extraordinary increase in enemy forces. Russia has been trying to carry out assault actions with a very small number of people in the assault group. If before it was 10 to 15, now it has decreased to even 2 to 3, and sometimes even one enemy soldier tries to advance. So that's the situation in our area of responsibility. Yes, day and night, in good weather, clear weather, or cloudy, they just, in simple Ukrainian terms, keep pushing, trying. We destroy them. Our pilots do an excellent job destroying them when they hide in the woods, and artillery and mortars get involved. But to say that this has increased in our area, I wouldn't say so at the moment. The brigade commander always emphasizes that destroying enemy infantry is fine when it approaches. But the priority for him, for all commanders, and for the brigade as a whole, is to destroy the Russian forces while they are still advancing from their rear. We have excellent, wonderful pilots of the Sapsan battalion unmanned systems who work at long distances with their little birds. So we destroy logistics and heavy equipment that the enemy, of course, does not bring to the line of contact but keeps hidden in the rear. This includes tanks, self-propelled artillery systems, SAUs, fuel depots and ammunition depots. So the priority is always to destroy the Russian troops in their rear, in their logistical areas, to prevent them from reaching the line of contact. When, say, 2 or 3 people still try to slip through closer, then that, of course, becomes the priority. So, to be clear, we first make great efforts to destroy everything he has in his rear, as well as any concentrations of personnel. The challenges in war are always the same, as the war has changed quite a bit, radically changed, let's say even compared to this period last year. The challenges are technological. That is, their developments, their improvements, the introduction of new ones. The enemy's fire impact, yes, that's a challenge, and it's not new. It's a constant challenge of war. As for the weather conditions, yes, regarding the season. Regarding autumn, the leaves will fall now, and it will be more difficult to camouflage ourselves and our equipment. But, it's a mirror image because the enemy will have the same autumn. The same leaves will fall, and they will also be more visible. Although, we can't do anything about the weather or the season here. It comes down to military cunning, the military skill of camouflage and doing what it takes to be one step ahead of the enemy, emphasized Nadiia Zamryha. Ukraine strongly protests the so-called autumn draft announced by Russia from October the 1st to December the 31st, 2025. Ukrainians under occupation were urged to avoid this process, said Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine. The enemy plans to recruit 135,000 men into the army, in particular on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, in Crimea and parts of Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia and Kherson regions. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs emphasized that this violates international legal obligations, in particular Article 51 of the 4th Geneva Convention relative to the protection of civilian persons in time of war. The article categorically prohibits the occupying power from compelling persons under its control to serve in its armed or auxiliary forces. Compulsion to serve in the army of the occupying power is a war crime and will not go unpunished, the ministry said. It is noted that the Kremlin will definitely use the recruits as cannon fodder in the war against Ukraine, thereby exposing them to mortal danger. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs emphasized that Russian conscripts have every right not to comply with and sabotage the criminal decree of Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, and Ukrainians are urged to surrender to the defense forces in case of forced mobilization. In this regard, we call on Ukrainians living in the temporarily occupied territories to avoid this criminal conscription in every possible way. In the event of involvement in the war against Ukraine, we urge them to take advantage of the opportunity to be saved through the I Want to Live project and voluntarily surrender to the Ukrainian Defense Forces, the statement reads. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs also appealed to Ukrainians living in the historical Ukrainian lands, Kuban, Starodubshchina, northern and eastern Slobozhanshchina, within the modern Krasnodar territory, Belgorod, Bryansk, Voronezh, Kursk, Rostov regions of Russia, with a request to remember their roots and not to participate in the war against the homelands of their ancestors. Representatives of indigenous peoples of the Russian Federation were reminded that Russia's invasion of Ukraine is not their war, but Moscow's. Moscow is throwing you to seize Ukrainian lands, just as it once seized your lands, and killing you en masse, so that others can live on your lands, the diplomatic agency emphasized. The ministry noted that Ukraine continues to document all violations of international law by Russia. The evidence will be used to bring the Russian military and political leadership to justice. The MFA called on the international community to increase political, diplomatic, and sanctions pressure on Russia. Let us recall that there is serious dissatisfaction with Russian rule in the occupied territories of Ukraine. Here, most men prefer to surrender to the Ukrainian side rather than be forcibly recruited into the Russian army. Such cases are already occurring and are expected to become widespread. Russians are worried about such situations.